They try to trigger you, control you, and pull you into their chaos. But the second you stop reacting, their power disappears. This is the ancient secret to ending disrespect forever. The ancient Stoics understood something most people still ignore today. Disrespect is not destroyed by shouting, arguing, or proving yourself to people who aren't even worth the energy. Disrespect ends the moment you learn the art of controlling what's inside you instead of chasing what is outside you. The world may throw insults, judgments, and opinions at you, but none of those can touch you unless you let them enter your mind. The secret is simple, yet powerful. You do not rise to disrespect by reacting, you rise above it by refusing to be moved. Every great Stoic discovered this truth. You cannot control other people's behavior, but you can fully control your response. The moment someone tries to provoke you, they want one thing, your reaction. They want your emotional energy, your attention, your stability. If you give it to them, they win. Not because they are stronger, but because you allowed them to reach inside your mind. The ancient secret is this: respect comes from inner authority. When you master yourself, you automatically command respect from others without asking for it. You end disrespect forever when you stop negotiating your worth with people who don't even know themselves. You stop explaining yourself to people who wouldn't understand even if you tried. You stop letting temporary emotions create permanent damage. People only disrespect what they believe they can shake. When they see you unshaken, their power disappears. Silence becomes your armor. Composure becomes your strength. Calmness becomes your response. You no longer need to shout to be taken seriously. Your self-control speaks louder than any words. Imagine someone throwing insults at you. Instead of reacting, you stand there with an unmoved mind. Not out of weakness, but out of intelligence. You understand that. Their words belong to them, not to you. Their behavior is a reflection of their inner chaos, not your value. The Stoic doesn't fight every battle. The Stoic chooses which battles are worthy, and disrespect never makes the list. You are too focused on building your character to worry about every opinion thrown your way. The ancient secret also teaches something deeper. People treat you the way you train them to. If you allow disrespect once, you will face it again. If you respond with strength, boundaries, and dignity, they will adjust. You don't need to shout. You don't need to threaten. All you need is consistency. You show them through your behavior that you respect yourself. You show them you are not desperate for approval. You show them you choose peace over drama, clarity over emotion, and purpose over ego. Your presence becomes powerful when you no longer react to everything. When you speak less, observe more, and move with intention. People feel that energy. Some admire it, some fear it, but everyone respects it. You end disrespect forever when you become someone whose self-worth does not depend on the outside world. You know who you are. You know what you stand for, and your confidence becomes silent, grounded, unshakable. The Stoics believed that the strongest person is the one who controls themselves. Anger is easy, retaliation is easy, but maintaining peace in the middle of chaos, that is real strength. And that strength changes everything around you. When you start responding with calmness, people think twice before trying to shake you. When you stop reacting, people stop trying to provoke you. When you stop caring about opinions that don't matter, you rise into a version of yourself that commands natural respect. The ancient secret to ending disrespect forever is not a trick, a tactic, or a line to say. It is a transformation within you. Become grounded. Become unshakable. Become the person whose inner peace is not for sale. Speak only when needed. Set boundaries without apology. Carry yourself like someone who knows their value. And when disrespect comes, and it always will, you greet it with a calm mind that refuses to surrender its power. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you attract by the way you live. When you master yourself, you master every situation. And in that mastery, disrespect dissolves, people adjust, and you rise into a life where nothing and no one can disturb your peace again. Controlling your response instead of trying to control someone else's behavior is one of the deepest strengths a human being can develop. Most people spend their entire lives reacting to the world around them, not realizing that they are giving away their power every time they let another person determine how they feel. When someone disrespects you, it is natural to feel anger, frustration, or hurt. But the ancient Stoics understood something most people overlook. Your reaction is always your choice. You cannot stop people from having opinions, judgments, or negative attitudes, but you can fully control what you give your energy to. The moment you react emotionally to someone's disrespect, you let them reach inside your mind and dictate your state. That is the real loss. It's not their words that damage you, it's the power you give to those words. When you learn to master your response, disrespect becomes powerless because it requires your cooperation to hurt you. Without your reaction, it fades into nothing. Think about how people expect you to respond when they try to provoke you. They want you angry, loud, defensive, or unstable. They want to see that they can influence your emotions. When you give them that reaction, you reward their behavior. But when you remain calm, composed, and unshaken, something completely different happens. The person loses control. Their disrespect fails. Their attempt to provoke you collapses in silence. You show them that you are not someone who can be moved by cheap words or shallow actions. Your calmness becomes a mirror that reflects their immaturity. That is why controlling your response is not weakness, it is a higher form of strength. It shows that your emotional world is governed by your own principles, not by someone else's behavior. People respect that naturally because it is rare. There is a quiet authority that comes from emotional discipline. You might not say a single word, but the silence itself carries weight. People who thrive on disrespect hate silence because silence means they failed. When someone insults you or disrespects you and you do not react, you are sending a message more powerful than any argument. You do not control me. That message is not spoken, it is understood. And once someone realizes they cannot influence you, their desire to disrespect you fades. They know it's pointless. This is why Stoics believed that the person who angers you controls you. If you remain unshaken, you stay in control. Emotional control is not about suppressing your feelings, it is about choosing when and how to use your energy. Not everything deserves a reaction. Not everyone deserves your attention. Most situations resolve themselves when you stop feeding them. Controlling your response also protects your peace. When you let every disrespectful comment enter your mind, you carry the weight long after the moment ends. You replay it. You attach meaning to it. You let it ruin your mood or your day. But when you control your response, the moment dies immediately. It cannot follow you. You don't allow someone's temporary emotion to become your long-term burden. You free yourself from emotional slavery. You begin to understand that inner peace is worth more than winning any confrontation. And ironically, when people see how calm you remain under pressure, their respect for you grows, even if they don't say it. Your restraint becomes strength. Your silence becomes power. Your emotional control becomes a shield that nothing can penetrate unless you permit it. The truth is simple. You cannot end disrespect by changing other people. You end disrespect by mastering yourself. When you control your response, you control the situation. When you remain calm, you rise above the disrespect, and when you rise above it, no one can bring you down. Staying silent and composed when someone tries to provoke you is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength, yet it is one of the most powerful. Most people react instantly when they feel disrespected. They raise their voice, defend themselves, or fire back with insults because they believe reacting proves their strength. But in reality, reacting gives the other person exactly what they want: your energy, your attention, and your emotional balance. When someone disrespects you, they are testing you. They want to see if they can pull you out of your center. They want to see if they can make you lose control, and the moment you explode, argue, or lash out, you show them that you can be moved. You show them that their words have power over you. But when you keep your composure, when you remain calm, when you respond with silence instead of emotion, something incredible happens. You take back all the power. Silence is not emptiness. It is a message louder than any comeback you could ever give. When you choose silence over reaction, you show that you are operating on a different level. You show that the disrespect aimed at you does not reach your core. You show that you are not controlled by impulse or ego, and most importantly, you show that you are not interested in pointless emotional battles. People who thrive on disrespect want chaos. They want drama. They want a reaction because a reaction gives them a sense of control. It confirms that they got under your skin. So when you don't react, when you stand there with a calm mind and a steady presence, they begin to feel their own insignificance. They realize their words didn't touch you. They realize their attempt to provoke you didn't succeed. And that realization often does more to silence them than anything you could ever say. Composure is power because it shows inner discipline. Anyone can shout. Anyone can argue. Anyone can lose control. That takes no skill. What takes real strength is the ability to feel everything that rises inside you, the urge to defend yourself, the flash of anger, the sting of the insult, and still choose not to react. It shows that you have mastered yourself. It shows that you value your peace more than your pride. It shows that you refuse to let someone else dictate your emotional state. And people respect those who cannot be emotionally manipulated. Even your silence becomes intimidating because it forces the other person to confront themselves. It exposes their insecurity and reveals their weakness. When you remain composed, people start to see you differently. They begin to see you as someone who is not easily shaken, someone who is not desperate to prove anything, someone whose presence speaks louder than their words. This is the kind of presence that naturally earns respect, even from those who may not like you. Because deep down, people admire emotional stability. They admire those who don't react impulsively, and they admire those who carry themselves with quiet confidence. Your calmness becomes a kind of shield, one that no insult can penetrate. No disrespect can break through it unless you allow it. Your silence also gives you clarity. When you don't react instantly, you give yourself time to observe. You notice the other person's intentions. You see the insecurity behind their disrespect. You recognize that their behavior has more to do with their internal struggles than anything about you. And with that realization, The disrespect loses its emotional weight. It becomes irrelevant. When you react emotionally, you make the disrespect personal. But when you stay composed, you keep it external. You detach, you maintain control, and control is everything. In the end, silence and calmness are not weaknesses. They are strategic, powerful choices. They protect your peace, they preserve your dignity, and they send a message no disrespect can overshadow, that you are grounded, confident, and in control. People stop trying to provoke someone who cannot be provoked. People stop disrespecting someone who shows unshakable composure. And once you master that calmness, disrespect slides off you like water. It cannot stay, it cannot spread, and it cannot touch who you truly are. Your self-worth is not something that anyone else can decide for you, and the moment you realize this, disrespect begins to lose all of its power. Most people get hurt not because someone insulted them, but because deep down they are still waiting for external validation. They want to be seen, approved, and accepted. And when someone disrespects them, it feels like their identity is being attacked. But the truth is, disrespect only hurts when you allow other people's opinions to define you. When you stop negotiating your value with the outside world, when you stop letting random people determine what you are worth, something shifts inside you. You become solid. You become grounded. You become someone who cannot be shaken by careless words or reckless behavior. Those who disrespect you no longer have access to your inner world, because your value is not up for debate. The ancient Stoics taught that your worth comes from your character, your choices, and your principles, not from what anyone says about you. Other people's opinions are just noise, and they only grow loud if you stand still long enough to listen. When someone disrespects you, you can either absorb their words or recognize that their reaction is a reflection of them, not you. People speak from their level of consciousness, their insecurities, their frustrations, and their emotional state. None of that has anything to do with who you are. When you deeply understand this, disrespect stops feeling personal. It becomes clear that their behavior belongs to them. It is their burden, not yours. Most people suffer because they try to prove themselves to the wrong audience. They try to convince others that they are worthy. But this is a trap, because the people who disrespect you are usually not interested in understanding you. They are interested in controlling you. They want to make you feel small so they can feel bigger. They want to shake your confidence so they can feel powerful. If you base your self-worth on their opinions, they will always have the ability to manipulate you. But when you decide that your value is internal and untouchable, their disrespect becomes meaningless. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending yourself. You stop seeking validation, and you rise into a version of yourself that no one can diminish. When your self-worth is not negotiable, your presence changes. You speak differently. You carry yourself differently. You move through the world with quiet confidence instead of loud insecurity. People feel this. Even those who dislike you will respect you. Because someone who knows their worth is someone who cannot be intimidated, someone who cannot be controlled, someone who does not collapse under criticism. And the truth is, people only disrespect those they believe they can break. Once they see you are unbreakable, the disrespect stops naturally. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or cold. It means you stop making your identity dependent on external approval. You no longer bend your personality to please others. You no longer shrink yourself to avoid judgment. You no longer allow the opinions of people who don't even know themselves to shape your self-view. You become whole within yourself, and that wholeness becomes your strength. When your self-worth becomes solid, You start setting boundaries automatically. You walk away from situations that don't match your value. You remove yourself from conversations that do not respect your energy. You choose peace over arguments. You choose growth over drama. And without any effort, you show others how to treat you. People quickly learn that disrespect has no effect on you because you do not measure yourself through their lens. You measure yourself through your own integrity. The moment you stop negotiating your worth, you stop giving others the power to define you, and when you stop giving them power, you end the cycle of disrespect forever. You become someone whose value is internal, untouchable, and beyond the reach of anyone else's words. People treat you the way you train them to, and this truth shapes every relationship, every interaction, and every moment of respect or disrespect you experience. Whether you realize it or not, your behavior is always teaching others how they are allowed to behave around you. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you send the message that it is acceptable. Every time you stay silent when someone crosses a line, you show them that the line doesn't really matter. Every time you excuse someone's behavior to keep the peace, you teach them that your peace can be bought at the price of your dignity. And slowly, without noticing it, you create the conditions for your own mistreatment. But the opposite is also true. When you set a standard for how you expect to be treated, when you enforce that standard with calm consistency, when you refuse to accept anything less than respect, people adjust. They learn, they change. Not because you force them to, but because your energy, your boundaries, and your self-respect demand a certain level of behavior. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that others just know how to treat them. But people only know what you show. If you laugh off disrespect, they think it doesn't bother you. If you keep giving someone chances after they've crossed your boundaries, they think your boundaries are flexible. If you reward bad behavior with continued access to your time and energy, they think there are no consequences. Your actions speak far louder than your words, and people hear them clearly. This is why setting boundaries is not about anger or confrontation. It is about clarity. It is about teaching people how to interact with you. It is about showing, not telling, that your dignity is not up for negotiation. When you begin to uphold strong boundaries, some people will test you. They will push back. Not because you're wrong, but because they benefited from your lack of boundaries before. They liked the version of you who tolerated mistreatment. They liked the version of you who didn't speak up. So when you start to enforce your standards, they feel uncomfortable. They may accuse you of being different, distant, or difficult. But this is just their reaction to losing access to the parts of you they once took advantage of. Do not mistake their discomfort for a reason to go back to who you were. Their resistance is proof that your boundaries are working. When you train people through your behavior, you don't need to argue. You don't need to justify yourself. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. You simply act according to your values. If someone respects you, you maintain the connection. If they don't, you distance yourself. This clarity is what makes strong people stand out. They don't cling to relationships that drain them. They don't seek approval from people who mistreat them. They do not explain their worth. They demonstrate it through their decisions. And people see that, they feel it. Even those who dislike your boundaries will eventually understand them because your consistency leaves no room for confusion. When you show people how to treat you, you also show them how to treat themselves. Your strength gives others permission to be strong. Your standards inspire others to create their own. And slowly, the energy around you changes. You start attracting people who respect you, people who value sincere connection, people who understand. Reciprocity. Your boundaries filter out those who do not belong in your life, and that is not loss, it is refinement. In the end, You cannot control how people behave, but you can control what you allow. And what you allow continues. Every action you take teaches others how to treat you. When you choose self-respect, the world mirrors it. When you choose standards, people rise to them. And when you choose to value your energy, only those who value it too will remain in your life. This is how you train the world to give you the respect you deserve. Disrespect often feels personal, but the truth is that it rarely has anything to do with you. People speak, act, and behave from the place they are standing inside themselves, and many of them are standing in chaos. Their frustration, insecurity, jealousy, fear, or lack of self-awareness spills out in the form of rude comments, dismissive attitudes, and careless words. When someone disrespects you, it is easy to internalize it, to think that it reflects something about your worth, your value, or your identity. But the ancient Stoics understood that other people's behavior is a mirror showing their inner world, not yours. A disrespectful person is not showing you the truth about who you are, they are exposing the truth about who they are. When you internalize their negativity, you allow their chaos to enter your peace. But when you recognize that their behavior is a reflection of their internal storms, disrespect becomes lighter, less emotional, and far less powerful. Most people are walking around with unresolved pain. They carry stress they never talk about. They carry insecurity they never confront. They carry anger they never dissolve. And because they don't know how to process their emotions, they project them onto others. If they feel inferior, they try to make someone else feel small. If they feel unnoticed, they try to provoke someone into giving them attention. If they feel a lack of control, they try to control the emotional state of someone nearby. None of this is about you. You just happen to be the closest target at that moment. Their disrespect is simply their inability to handle their own internal world. Understanding this does not excuse their behavior, but it frees you from absorbing it. Imagine someone throwing mud at you. You can either let it hit you and stain your clothes, or you can step aside and let it fall to the ground. Disrespect works the same way. When you recognize that the mud being thrown comes from their inner mess, you become more detached. You stop taking their words personally. You stop letting their mood ruin your mood. You stop allowing their emotional storms to reach your inner peace. Instead of reacting impulsively, you step back internally and observe. You see the insecurity behind the insult. You see the frustration behind the attitude. You see the pain behind the aggression. And once you see that clearly, it becomes impossible to take their disrespect seriously. When you make this shift, something powerful happens: emotional freedom. You no longer feel the need to react to everything. You don't feel the urge to defend yourself every time someone tries to chip away at your confidence. You don't feel the shock that comes from disrespect because you understand its source. You become someone who doesn't get dragged into the emotional instability of others. Your peace becomes firmer. Your confidence becomes quieter. Your self-worth becomes more internal, independent of how the outside world behaves. And this internal stability naturally commands respect. People notice when you don't react to their negativity. They notice when you don't get pulled into arguments or emotional traps. They notice when their disrespect fails to shake you. At first, they may be confused or even irritated because they expected to control your emotions, but over time they begin to understand that you cannot be manipulated, provoked, or diminished. Your calmness becomes a message. Your stability becomes a shield, and your refusal to take their behavior personally becomes a strength they cannot penetrate. What they say about you is a reflection of them. How you respond is a reflection of you. The moment you understand that disrespect is not a statement about your worth, but a window into their struggles, you free yourself from emotional noise that was never meant for you in the first place. You rise above it, untouched, unmoved, and unshaken. When you stop internalizing their chaos, you end the power of disrespect forever. Real strength has nothing to do with how loud you are, how intimidating you look, or how aggressively you react. Real strength lives inside you. It comes from the ability to master yourself when everything around you tries to pull you out of your center. The world will always test you. People will misunderstand you, provoke you, disrespect you, and try to knock you off balance. But the strongest person is the one who refuses to let external chaos dictate their inner world. Anyone can lash out when triggered. Anyone can shout when angry. Anyone can get emotional when pushed. But to stay calm, composed, grounded, and unshaken in the middle of provocation, that is something rare. And that rarity is what commands true respect. When you maintain inner strength, you no longer need to force respect. Your presence naturally earns it. Inner strength is built in silence, in moments where you choose self-control over reaction. It is built when you decide that your peace matters more than winning an argument. It is built when you consciously choose not to let negativity enter your mind. Many people think reacting is a sign of power. They think that by firing back or showing anger they prove dominance. But anger is not dominance, it is dependence. It shows that your emotions are controlled by someone else's behavior. It shows that you are reactive instead of intentional. When someone can pull an emotion out of you whenever they want, they control you. But when you remain steady, when you stay calm, when you refuse to let someone else's words change the rhythm of your soul, you show a strength that cannot be shaken by anything external. This is the kind of strength the Stoics valued. They understood that self-control is the highest form of power. You cannot control the world. You cannot control other people. You cannot control their opinions, their disrespect, or their ignorance. But you can always control yourself. You can control your breath, your tone, your thoughts, your reactions. And when you master these, you master every situation. People who try to provoke you expect an explosive response. They expect you to get emotional, defensive, or unstable. When you don't give them the reaction they want, you expose their weakness. You show them that their attempts to shake you are powerless. This is why your calmness frustrates insecure people. It reveals that they have no influence over you, and people respect those they cannot manipulate. Inner strength also creates clarity. When you are calm inside, you see people more clearly. You see the insecurity behind their disrespect. You see the immaturity behind their anger. You see the confusion behind their arrogance. This clarity helps you detach yourself from emotional traps that others try to pull you into. You understand that their behavior says nothing about your worth and everything about their inner world. When you recognize this deeply, you stop wasting energy on trying to fix, convince, or fight anyone. You walk through situations with a level of dignity and self-awareness that most people never reach. Being unshakable is not about pretending nothing affects you. It is about knowing that not everything deserves a reaction. It is about choosing your peace over your ego, your growth over the argument, your future over the moment. This is the strength that turns disrespect into dust. When people see that their negativity can't touch you, they lose interest in trying to bring you down. When they see that you stay stable under pressure, their behavior shifts. Some will begin to respect you quietly. Some will feel intimidated by your calmness. Some will change the way they speak to you. But all of them will recognize that you are not someone who can be pushed around. True strength is internal, silent, and controlled. It is the kind of strength that does not need to be shown. It is felt. It is the strength that speaks through your presence, your decisions, and your energy. And when you cultivate this strength, disrespect becomes powerless, and you become someone the world cannot shake.